begin that as soon as we can get everything set up. So I'll introduce you. You're on? Okay.
Do you have the password?
Oh, crap.
Steve?
Steve.
Do you have the password?
And it's Cora Braun, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It'll be like 10:30.
Yep. Oh, yep. Our first presentation of this session is exploring the current state of the planetarium landscapes and examination of GDP and GLPA institutions by Cora Braun.
So, does this one work? Need some help?
It does. It's all good.
Okay, perfect. Can everybody hear me? No. Okay. This way? Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone. My name is Cora Braun. I'm a PhD student at the Europe University Flensburg and Kiel University of Applied Sciences. Both universities are located in the very northern part of Germany. I'm at home in media studies, so I have a bachelor's degree in multimedia production and a master's degree in media conception, and since last year I'm working on my dissertation. The aim of this short presentation is to provide an insight into my PhD research project, as the expected results may be of interest and relevant for a large proportion of you. So the planetarium landscape has become increasingly diverse over the past 100 years, and hardly one planetarium is like another, and yet you can identify different types or forms of planetariums. So the concept of a planetarium 100 years ago looked something like this, and comparable institutions still exist today, but due to a lot of influences from other immersive media, planetariums nowadays also look like this. And the convergence of giant screen cinema technology and the architecture of the planetarium has caused, let's call it, a daunting inconsistency in theater layouts, which in turn changes the positioning of the spectator in relation to the screen. And this is a very important point because this influences the user experience and reception situation in many ways. So these different architectures create different perceptual arrangements, and these have also led to the development of different approaches to image composition, which again influence the reception situation of a spectator being more passive, like in the case of a unidirectional content in a more cinema-styled auditorium, or by being more active, like looking around, turning their head to some degree to keep track of omnidirectional content in a circular auditorium. So here we have two possibly even fundamentally different user experiences facing each other. And we can make these experiences even more different if we now contrast a linear film with an interactive live presentation, for example. So bottom line is that not only do we have this diverse planetarium landscape, but these differences also affect the reception situation of a visitor and create different user experiences. And the aim of my research now is to capture this diverse landscape and its accompanying media effects comprehensively with empirical methods in order to be able to describe the planetarium landscape systematically. So I want to know what the planetarium is today and in what forms it manifests itself. So of course there is a theory which lays the foundation for everything, and it is the concept of a dispositif by Michel Foucault. This is simply a term from media studies that tries to describe what a medium is and what constitutes it. So it is an analytical tool that can be applied to all types of media and describes various structural elements that shape the medium into what it is. And I don't want to tell anybody how to run their planetarium. I just want to objectively capture where we are right now. So what interests me is how much do individual planetariums resemble each other, or how far have they already moved away from each other? So to what extent has the character of the medium changed? Where do we stand now? And first of all, you might think, and why should I care? So And second, yes, several people from our community have probably already dealt with some of these questions. What makes my research now different from previous considerations is that I want to collect empirical data about the everyday life of different planetarium institutions in order to map their reality of life and to have objective numbers in hand. And with these empirical descriptions, I'd like to be able to hold up the mirror to the planetarium community to provide an undistorted picture. So first of all, this should be empowering to the community through more objective data, which can also lead to a better and also more objective self-image. And with the expected information, the different stakeholders in this very small community can decide on an objective basis which aspects of the medium they want to emphasize and strengthen in its further development. And these stakeholders are, of course, not only companies and producers, but also each and every one of you who's working in a planetarium, right? And then second, you should also be able to do more targeted content production and also more targeted distribution of hard and software, as well as planning of new facilities. So how do I get this data and what kind of data do I want to collect exactly? I am going to examine two subsectors of the global planetarium community, both of which have had a major impact on the development of the medium. So this includes the community of the birthplace of the planetarium, the Society of German-Speaking Planetariums, the GDP. And I will look at a comparable group from the American cultural area, because here especially the invention and spread of IMAX domes and also the idea of a split space science classroom has changed the essence of a planetarium a lot. So the counterpart to GDP will be the core regions from Great Lakes Planetarium Association. There will be two separate data collections. So data collection one will take a closer or collect structural data about the individual planetariums, about their technology, architecture, the institutional framework, and also rough information about the event and program structure. And this data collection will be done with a questionnaire as a full survey, hopefully. And regarding the time frame, I plan to send it out later this fall. Furthermore, the survey is not just for full-dome planetariums, but for all planetariums. And all questions serve to investigate more structural elements of the institution. The second data collection is a structured interview that is primarily intended to collect qualitative data on the event and program structure of individual planetariums. This will only be a small group of institutions and not a full survey, and at the end I hope for a large database of which it becomes clear in which forms the medium has manifested itself at present. So I suspect that there will be a spectrum of various mixed forms that can be found between two or more extremes. So the question now is, for example, in what proportion different planetarium types with different characteristics are represented in the community. So how is the planetarium landscape structured? And in the last step of my research design, this empirically recorded dispositif should be compared with the dispositif from 100 years ago to outline the transition and also emphasize the status quo. And then later you as a community may also check if planetarium types are adequately represented in the current discourse within the community. I have brought some recent figures that also show the direction I want my research to take. So currently we have 140 planetariums in the GDP area, and only 11 of them have a tilted dome. 129 domes are horizontal, and considering only those planetariums with a full dome system, we have a total of 88 full dome planetariums, of which 10 are tilted and 78 are horizontal, so the ratio remains approximately the same regardless of the technological equipment inside of the dome. And looking at the seating arrangement, 75% of the dome have a concentric seating arrangement. This ratio changes a bit if we only look at planetariums with full dome systems. So then only 44% of the dome are concentric, so the percentage is getting smaller, but it still makes up the bulk of domes. And domes that tend to be directional seated are at 28%. Most databases do not categorize their content by image composition approach. FullDomeDatabase.org does, and the majority of all content that is listed there is unidirectional. And almost all content is linear, so real-time content and live performances are virtually not reflected. And here you can also see that the planetarium is still very monothematic, even if at the beginning of full dome technology it was said like, no, we can finally do everything. All catalogs have at least a share of 2/3 in the category astronomy, but also behind the other categories there are titles with a clear reference to astronomy, like Ancient Skies, Ancient Mysteries, or Larry Cat in Space. So you should know what I'm talking about. Another point is that all content there is pre-rendered and linear, but if we understand Fulldom technology as a convergence of digitized planetarium technology and large format film, you may notice that the real-time content proportion is not reflected or represented in these catalogs, and also not anywhere else. So this does not mean that show distributors are accused for selling linear shows. This is rather an appeal to us that a very significant part of the planetarium experience has no representation in any database. So the question now is rather how relevant, for example, is real-time generated content or even a live presentation compared to a pre-produced show in order to describe the planetarium. So how much cinema is in the planetarium and how much planetarium from 1925 is still in the planetarium today. I have to come to an end, so this is my contact information. I hope that I could convince everybody up to here to participate in the project later this year, especially those from GLPA area. In any case, I want to make sure that the results of my research flow back into the community afterwards, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but for now, thank you for your attention.
Hello. I was wondering how we would be able to access this data in the future. Is it just emailing you, or are you planning to share it online somehow?
You mean like sending out the survey?
It's not the survey, the results.
I have not thought about that yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's my PhD. I have to publish it in any kind of form, but I also plan to present it to the community again, so attend conferences and perhaps publish in the planetarium as well, the IPS journal. So.
Yeah, I think it would be very useful for planetarians everywhere to be able to use this data to talk to their administration about these things.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
just chill. Okay, all right. Now, what's your last name?
Creighton.
Creighton?
Yeah. Okay, so we have the B's again.
Oh, goodness. Steve.
He'll come back.
He will. We got time. But we do need to plug that in.
Sorry.
Good. And then you're doing good. Thank you so much. All right. And for our next presentation, live from the planetarium, the sequel, spoken by Jean Creighton.
Just in case. Okay, thank you.
Okay, testing one. Okay, very good. Hello and welcome. I am in the happy position to present a program. I'm not Sarah, I'm not Tiffany, I'm not even Jeff. I'm Jean Creighton, and I was asked to present since Sarah isn't going to be here today and Tiffany has already done 5 million things. So I happily agreed. I'm very interested in this project, and I'm going to talk less than the time because I really want some participation. In fact, I want commitments. I want emails so I can follow up with you. So here is the kind of idea. Live from the Planetarium is a program that we worked on, I think it's more than 10 years ago now, 2009 I think. And the idea was there's a lot of information that planetarians have that they can share with new people in the field or people who are experienced but are having some difficulties with a certain topic. So it seems crazy that we wouldn't share the expertise that we have. So I said in words what this text says, so I'm going to move along. And the clip doesn't work, but this was a collaboration from many planetarians who submitted video. And we took the video, we put them in themes, and Bob and I we were the hosts, the MCs, if you will. Okay, so this is where I want to stay, and that is topics covered. So what I'd like you to do is I would like you to think, what topic could you present? And this could be video, this could be audio. Think in terms of like 2 minutes. From the technology that we had in 2009, we've really made a lot of strides. So you can do this nowadays on the phone. Yes, there's going to be an infrared camera that if you would like to be seen, that is possible. Please take into consideration that you don't want audience members to be seen because they haven't given you, unless you have written approvals for privacy. Please consider also just an audio recording. So, things like introductions to planetarium programs. I would say specifically, do you have ways of warming up your audience? Do you have ways of saying hello to people that makes them want to be part of your party, right? And I say party in the general way. Using models, do you have ones that are easy, that don't require a lot of money to obtain? We had that wonderful example that Ken used in lips, that you can use 2 thumbs to show an eclipse. Making predictions. How do you transition? This is something we all do. How do you transition from a daytime sky to a nighttime sky? Any tricks that you have found work, I'd like to hear from. So, and because I don't want this to end and you to go away and I not have a single name, I would like to hear, and I'm actually going to write down, so I'll follow up. Would you be prepared to come up to a mic and say, yes, please bug me about this. I would like to contribute. And I'll just continue here for a sec. We need you. This is the, I think the benefits are obvious, both to the community and to you, because you get to actually record yourself and do a bit of self-reflection. Is this really what I thought I was doing? Because sometimes we see ourselves and we realize, oh, that works. That doesn't. But it's good. And also, of course, we have the opportunity to learn from others. So as I said, I think this is obvious. I will leave this up for a moment. Some tips for recording. Again, this information will be given to you. Again, should you be interested, you can request equipment. The phones are getting so much better now, so that's something we can do. Obviously, you'd like to check your audio to make sure that your voice is good enough. And that, again, as I said, please make sure there are no identifiable faces in your video. So I'm going to go back to the thing I care about most, and I'll leave when I stop talking and I have some names. I'd like to get at least 5 people to commit. 7 would be better.
Hi, Matt Young. Do you want my email address? Is how you want
I
it?
will find it.
Okay.
Matt Young is good enough.
Good.
What topic would you like to talk about?
Constellation stories. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I have the pleasure to be able to teach an astronomy class that goes year long. So every Friday we do what I call Feature Friday, and we look at a weekly change in the sky. We're able to look at the changes, and then I always incorporate a new mythology story or some
Great.
type of storytelling during that session. So I'd love to do some of those.
Great, thank you. So I'll read more since it's impossible to read. Tips for using a pointer. I mean, some of the stuff is really basic, but if you're a newbie, you think you go like this, and that works. It's useful to have that information. Finding constellations, transition from city to country sky. We have showing the passage of time, checking for understanding. How do you check in with your audience to see that they're not checked out, right? Responding to spontaneous questions. We had a whole session about dealing with difficult questions. Go ahead.
Carol Holmberg,
Yeah.
and I sit at the console, which is behind the audience, and I would like to talk about my introduction.
Great, thank you.
And getting students to respond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, who else? I would love to give an invitation to every single person in the room, a personal invitation, but that's not going to be possible. So please consider yourself personally invited. Bring your wisdom to the group. Go ahead, Bo.
Bo Hartwig, and I would like to do about using models, particularly rotation, Earth's rotation.
Thank you. Oh, I love this. I'd like to see people making a line. Please make a line. Go ahead.
Hey, David Dundee, Bentley Planetarium Telescience Museum. I'd like to talk about breaking the ice for public live programming.
Thank you. There's many people in the room. MJ, go ahead.
Hi, I'm MJ West, and I would like to talk about transition from city to country sky. We like to highlight the difference between a light pollution areas, the Bortle scale. We utilize it, the stellarium feature, and we tell them what it's like in different areas with light pollution and not.
Awesome, thank you. Ken, come ahead.
I guess Ken Brandt, Robinson Planetarium, somewhere in North Carolina. And I want to do using models also, but focusing on interaction, getting the audience to do the modeling, basically.
Great. Drew, come in.
Hi, Drew Gilmore. I'd like to talk about handling technical difficulties and surprises, which we could make fun.
Great, thank you.
The universe runs on Windows.
Handling technical difficulties.
Dave Manis. I kind of like the idea of explaining what a constellation is, how they came about, and in terms of leading into stories. That the sky is our storybook.
Okay, thank you.
You know who I am.
But other people might not.
Yeah, I'm Mel Blake, University of North Alabama Planetarium. I do live shows, and I always leave time at the end of the show, no matter what we do, for questions. So I'd like to cover the responding to spontaneous questions.
Okay.
You'll get little kids asking about black holes and things like that.
We sure do, yeah. Who else would like to come up? There's a lot of experience in the room. Oh, yay.
Hi, Krista Gent at East Kentucky Science Center. I would like to talk about making predictions.
How about somebody to talk about how you wrap up a show? Do we have anybody who's proud of how they wrap up a show? It's thinking about it.
Always give the opportunity for questions at the bottom, at the end of the show. We find that sometimes takes like 15 minutes. I know that the school groups got to move through, but we try to allot enough time that we can have discussion and sometimes return back to the sky to answer the question.
Okay, so you suggested that part of the closing is the questions because that gives people an opportunity to ask what they really want, and then you can go back to the sky and show what is it that perhaps pertains to their question. Thank you. Yes?
Elliot Severn, Discovery Science Center. You still need the ending, the planetarium program covered?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I like to end with sort of starting at Earth and going out and going over our cosmic address, and we end with a fly-through of all the other galaxies and just how many are out there. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else obvious that we missed? How about checking for understanding? What are your tricks to figure out if your audience is with you or did you lose them? Or you just assume?
I'm a classroom teacher, so it's a little easier for me. So I have like little slips where they tell me 2 things they learned from the show, and then they have to draw a picture. And so that's always fun to see what they come up with. School appropriate, always.
Yeah. There are lots of people who either work for schools or with schools. Checking for understanding. I probably have run out of time. Checking. If something occurs to you and you think, okay, I really would like to, I realized, I have this wonderful idea. I'm sure that Sarah would also be extremely happy to get more from this QR code, so you can also take that and follow up. I think this is the last session, so thank you so much for being here, and I'm sorry that I'm not Sarah or Tiffany. Thank you very much.
They should leave that up for a second.
Okay.